Keanu Reeves stepped into the luxurious watch boutique on a sunny afternoon in Beverly Hills. The store was one of those places where everything gleamed: polished glass cases, sparkling chandeliers hanging from the ceiling, and rows of expensive watches displayed like treasures. It was the kind of place that screamed wealth and exclusivity, attracting celebrities, business tycoons, and people who wanted to show off their success. But Keanu wasn't dressed for the part that day. He wore his usual casual style: faded jeans, a simple black t-shirt, and a worn-out leather jacket. His hair was slightly messy, as if he'd just gotten off a motorcycle or stepped out of a long meeting without bothering to fix it. To anyone passing by, he looked like an average guy, someone you might see grabbing coffee at a local cafe or walking his dog down the street. Nothing about him screamed movie star or millionaire. As soon as he entered, the bell above the door chimed softly, announcing his arrival. A saleswoman standing near the counter glanced up briefly, her eyes scanning him from head to toe. She didn't recognize him, not immediately anyway, and quickly dismissed him as someone who probably couldn't afford anything in the store. After all, this wasn't the first time tourists or passers-by had wandered in, curious about the shiny displays but unable to make a purchase. In her mind, Keanu fit that category perfectly. The saleswoman went back to organizing some papers on the counter, barely paying attention as Keanu moved closer to one of the display cases. He stopped in front of a row of watches, his gaze lingering on a particular model. It was a stunning piece with a sleek platinum band and a face encrusted with tiny diamonds. The price tag? Over $50,000. Most people wouldn't even dare to touch something so extravagant, let alone consider buying it. But Keanu leaned forward slightly, studying the watch with genuine interest. After a moment, he turned toward the saleswoman and cleared his throat gently. "Excuse me," he said in a soft, polite voice. "Could you tell me more about this watch?" The saleswoman raised an eyebrow, surprised that someone dressed so casually would ask about such an expensive item. Surely, he must know how much it costs, she thought. Still, she forced a smile and replied, "Oh, that's one of our finest pieces. It's handcrafted, limited edition, and very exclusive." Her tone was professional, but there was a hint of skepticism in her words, as though she were humoring him rather than taking him seriously. Keanu nodded, clearly impressed. "It looks incredible," he said. "I'd love to take a closer look, if that's okay." At this point, the saleswoman couldn't help herself. She exchanged a quick glance with another employee nearby, and they both shared a knowing smirk. "This guy really thinks he can afford something like that?" she thought to herself. Without realizing it, her expression shifted from polite indifference to something closer to amusement. She tried to hide it, but the corners of her mouth twitched upward as she imagined what kind of job this man could possibly have to justify asking about such an expensive watch. "Well," she said, dragging out the word as if to emphasize the absurdity of the situation, "it is quite a special piece. Are you sure you want to, proceed?" Her question hung in the air, laced with subtle mockery. She didn't mean to be rude, at least not intentionally, but years of working in high-end retail had taught her to size people up quickly. And based on his appearance, Keanu didn't match the profile of someone who belonged in this store. Keanu, however, didn't react the way she expected. Instead of looking embarrassed or defensive, he simply smiled faintly and nodded again. "Yes, I'm sure," he replied calmly. His voice carried no trace of irritation or frustration, just quiet confidence. If anything, he seemed unfazed by her reaction, almost as if he'd encountered similar situations before. The saleswoman hesitated for a second, unsure of what to do next. On one hand, she felt a twinge of guilt for judging him so harshly. On the other hand, she couldn't shake the feeling that he was wasting her time. Finally, she sighed and walked over to the display case, unlocking it with a small key. As she carefully lifted the watch out and placed it on a velvet tray, she couldn't resist making a snide comment under her breath. "Some people just don't know their limits," she murmured quietly, thinking he wouldn't hear her. But Keanu did hear her. And while he didn't say anything, his calm demeanor never wavered. He picked up the watch and examined it closely, turning it over in his hands and admiring its intricate details. For a brief moment, the saleswoman wondered if maybe, just maybe, he actually knew what he was talking about. Could he really be serious about buying it? Little did she know, the events that followed would leave her questioning everything she thought she knew about people and herself. The saleswoman couldn't help herself. As Keanu continued to study the watch with quiet focus, she turned her attention back to her coworker standing a few feet away. Her coworker, a younger man in a neatly pressed suit, had been watching the interaction unfold with mild curiosity. He raised an eyebrow when he saw the saleswoman's barely concealed smirk, silently asking what was going on. "She's got to be kidding," the saleswoman whispered, her voice low but sharp enough to carry across the quiet store. She tilted, her head toward Keanu, making sure her coworker understood who she was talking about. "Look at him. Does he honestly think he can afford something like that?" She gestured discreetly at the watch Keanu was holding, her tone dripping with disbelief. Her coworker glanced over at Keanu and shrugged. "Maybe he's just browsing," he suggested cautiously, though his expression suggested he wasn't entirely convinced either. "You never know. Some people come in here pretending they're interested even if they don't have the money." The saleswoman rolled her eyes dramatically. "Oh, please. Browsing? That guy? Look at him." She waved her hand in Keanu's direction, as if his plain clothes and unassuming demeanor were evidence enough of his financial status. "He looks like someone who stopped by after grabbing lunch from a food truck, and now he's acting like he's ready to drop 50 grand on a watch? Give me a break." Her coworker chuckled nervously, clearly unsure how to respond. He shifted uncomfortably, glancing between Keanu and the saleswoman. While he didn't outright agree with her, he also didn't challenge her assumptions. After all, working in a high-end boutique meant dealing with all kinds of customers. Some genuine, others not so much. Over time, it became second nature to make snap judgments based on appearances. It was easier that way, or so they told themselves. But the saleswoman wasn't done venting. Emboldened by her coworker's lack of pushback, she leaned closer and lowered her voice even further, though not quite enough to avoid being overheard. "Honestly, I bet he doesn't even know how much this thing costs. Maybe he thinks it's fake or something." She let out a short, derisive laugh, shaking her head as if the whole situation were absurd. "Or worse, maybe he thinks we'll give him a discount because he looks so ordinary." Her words hung in the air, sharp and cutting, echoing faintly in the otherwise silent store. The sound of her laughter reached Keanu's ears, though he gave no outward sign of having heard it. If anything, he seemed even more focused on the watch, turning it over in his hands and inspecting every detail with care. His calmness only fueled the saleswoman's growing irritation. "Seriously, though," she continued, her voice rising slightly as her frustration mounted, "why does he keep wasting my time? I mean, look at him. He's dressed like he just walked off the set of some indie movie or maybe a biker gang. What is he even doing here?" She punctuated her rant with another dismissive wave of her hand, as if trying to shoo away the very idea of Keanu being a legitimate customer. Her coworker hesitated for a moment before responding. "Well, you should probably just humor him," he said finally, his tone cautious. "You never know. Sometimes people surprise you." The saleswoman snorted. "Yeah, right. Like that's going to happen. Trust me, this guy isn't buying anything. He's probably just looking for attention or something." With that, she crossed her arms and leaned against the counter, her body language radiating impatience and disdain. Meanwhile, Keanu remained unfazed. He placed the watch back on the velvet tray and looked up at the saleswoman, his expression calm and composed. "Thank you for letting me see it," he said politely, his voice steady and sincere. "It's a beautiful piece." For a split second, the saleswoman felt a flicker of guilt. There was something about the way he spoke, so respectful and measured, that made her question whether she'd misjudged him. But the feeling quickly passed, replaced by her earlier certainty that he was nothing more than a nuisance. She forced a tight smile and replied, "You're welcome. Let me know if you want to see anything else." Keanu nodded and took a step back, giving her a polite nod. "Actually, there is one more thing," he said, his tone still pleasant. Could you show me the price tag again, just to confirm? The request caught the saleswoman off guard. For a moment, she stared at him blankly, unsure how to respond. Did he really not know how much the watch cost? Or was he playing some kind of game? Either way, she decided to comply, figuring it would be the quickest way to end the conversation. She picked up the tray and pointed to the small card tucked beneath the watch. Right here, she said, her voice tinged with sarcasm. $52,000, pretty steep, huh? Instead of flinching or backing down, Keanu simply nodded thoughtfully. I see, he said, his expression unchanged. Then, without missing a beat, he reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He tapped the screen a few times, then held it to his ear. Hey, it's me, he said into the receiver. Can you send over the funds for the watch? Thanks. The saleswoman froze, her mouth falling open in shock. Had she heard him correctly? Was he actually going through with the purchase? No, it couldn't be real. Surely this was some kind of prank or misunderstanding. People like him, people who looked like him, didn't walk into stores like this and casually buy watches worth tens of thousands of dollars. Her mind raced as she tried to process what was happening. All the jokes she'd made, all the mocking comments she'd shared with her coworker, they suddenly felt heavy, weighing down on her chest. What if she'd been wrong? What if this man was exactly who he claimed to be? Before she could fully wrap her head around the situation, Keanu ended the call and handed her his credit card. Whenever you're ready, he said calmly, his voice betraying no hint of anger or resentment. The saleswoman hesitated, her hands trembling slightly as she took the card from him. She swiped it through the machine, half expecting it to be declined. But to her astonishment, the transaction went through without a hitch. The watch was officially sold to Keanu Reeves, the man she'd spent the last 10 minutes ridiculing. As the receipt printed out, the full weight of her actions hit her. She had mocked him, laughed at him, and treated him like he didn't belong in the store, all because of how he looked. And now here he was, proving her wrong in the most unexpected way possible. Her face burned with shame as she handed him the bag containing the watch. Thank you for your purchase, she managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper. It was all she could do to keep herself from crumbling under the weight of her embarrassment. Keanu accepted the bag with a small smile. You're welcome, he said simply, his tone kind and forgiving. Then, without another word, he turned and walked out of the store, leaving the saleswoman standing there, stunned and speechless. As Keanu walked out of the store, the saleswoman stood frozen behind the counter, her mind racing as she replayed the events of the past few minutes. She couldn't believe what had just happened. The man she'd mocked, laughed at, and dismissed so casually had not only purchased one of their most expensive watches but had done so with a grace and dignity that left her feeling smaller than ever before. Her co-worker, who had been silently observing from a distance, finally broke the silence. Wow, he muttered under his breath, shaking his head in disbelief. That was something. The saleswoman didn't respond right away. Her hands were still trembling slightly, clutching the credit card receipt as if it might somehow explain everything. But deep down, she already knew the truth. She had made a huge mistake. Not just a professional blunder, but a personal one too. She had judged someone based on their appearance, a lesson she thought she'd learned years ago, and now she was paying the price for her arrogance. What do we do now? Her co-worker asked nervously, glancing around the store as if expecting some kind of fallout. Do you think he'll say anything? Complain or report us? She shook her head slowly, though she wasn't entirely sure. I don't know, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. But honestly, I wouldn't blame him if he did. The weight of her actions pressed heavily on her chest, making it hard to breathe. For the first time in her career, she felt truly ashamed, not just of how she'd treated Keanu, but of the way she approached customers in general. How many others had she dismissed over the years without giving them a second thought? Her co-worker hesitated before speaking again. You know, he began cautiously, choosing his words carefully. He didn't seem mad or upset. In fact, he seemed Nice. Like, really nice. The saleswoman nodded numbly, remembering the calm expression on Keanu's face throughout the entire interaction. Despite her mockery and rudeness, he hadn't reacted with anger or frustration. Instead, he had remained polite and composed, treating her with a level of respect she didn't feel she deserved. It was almost as if he understood human nature better than she did, that people sometimes make mistakes even when they should know better. "I don't get it," she said softly, more to herself than to her coworker. Why didn't he call me out? Why didn't he say something? Anyone else would have. Her coworker shrugged. Maybe because he didn't need to. Sometimes actions speak louder than words, you know? He proved his point by buying the watch, and he did it without rubbing it in your face. That says a lot about who he is. The saleswoman fell silent, letting those words sink in. It was true. Keanu could have easily retaliated. He could have demanded to speak to the manager, complained about her behavior, or simply refused to complete the purchase. But he hadn't. Instead, he had handled the situation with quiet confidence, showing a level of maturity and humility that she found both humbling and inspiring. Still, the guilt gnawed at her. She couldn't shake the image of his calm smile as he handed over his credit card, knowing full well how much she had underestimated him. What kind of person could endure such blatant disrespect and still treat others with kindness? It was a question that lingered in her mind long after he had left the store. Determined to make things right, she decided to take action. Sitting down at the counter, she grabbed a pen and a piece of paper and began writing. At first, the words came slowly, each sentence feeling inadequate compared to the depth of her regret. But as she continued, the apology began to flow more naturally, pouring out of her like a confession. "Dear Mr. Reeves," she started, her handwriting shaky but sincere. "I want to begin by apologizing for my behavior earlier today. I deeply regret the way I treated you while you were in our store. My comments and attitude were disrespectful and unfair, and I am truly sorry for any discomfort or embarrassment I may have caused you." She paused for a moment, rereading what she had written so far. It felt like a start, but she knew she needed to go deeper, to explain why she had acted the way she did and assure him that it wouldn't happen again. "I realize now that my assumptions about you were completely wrong," she continued. "I judged you based on appearances, which is something I never should have done. You showed incredible patience and kindness despite my poor treatment, and for that, I am grateful. Please know that I will use this experience as a reminder to treat everyone with the respect and professionalism they deserve, no matter how they look or present themselves." As she finished the letter, tears welled up in her eyes. Writing it had been cathartic, but it also forced her to confront the harsh reality of her own biases. She sealed the envelope and addressed it to Keanu, adding a note asking the manager to forward it to him. Though she doubted he would respond, she hoped the gesture would show that she was genuinely remorseful. Over the next few days, the incident weighed heavily on her mind. Every time a customer walked into the store, she found herself scrutinizing her behavior, determined not to repeat the same mistakes. She greeted everyone warmly, listened attentively to their requests, and avoided jumping to conclusions about their intentions or financial status. It was a small step, but it was a start. Then, one afternoon, just as she was beginning to think Keanu might never respond, an email appeared in the store's inbox. It was from him. Her heart raced as she opened it, unsure of what to expect. To her surprise, the message was brief but heartfelt. "Thank you for your apology," he wrote. "I appreciate your honesty and willingness to reflect on what happened. We all make mistakes, and I believe the important thing is learning from them. I hope you'll continue to approach every customer with the same kindness and respect you've shown in your letter. There's no need to dwell on the past. Let's focus on moving forward." Attached to the email was an invitation to a charity event he was hosting later that month. The proceeds would benefit children in underserved communities, and he encouraged her to attend if she was interested. "It would be great to see you there," he added, signing off with a simple, "Best regards, Keanu." The saleswoman stared at the screen, overwhelmed by his generosity and understanding. Here was a man who had every reason to hold a grudge, yet he had chosen forgiveness instead. Not only that, but he had extended an olive branch, inviting her into his world and giving her a chance to learn more about the values he lived by. Touched by his kindness, she accepted the invitation immediately. As she prepared for the event, she realized that meeting Keanu wasn't just about making amends. It was about learning from him. His actions reminded her of the power of humility, compassion, and second chances. And for the first time in a long time, she felt hopeful, not just about her career but about herself. The night of the charity event arrived, and the saleswoman found herself standing outside a grand ballroom in downtown Los Angeles. The building was lit up with warm golden lights, and a long red carpet led to the entrance where photographers snapped pictures of guests arriving in elegant gowns and sharp suits. She felt out of place in her simple black dress, clutching the invitation tightly in her hands, as if it might somehow reassure her that she belonged there. Taking a deep breath, she stepped inside. The room was breathtaking, decorated with sparkling chandeliers, lush floral arrangements, and tables draped in crisp white linens. A live band played soft jazz music in the corner, while waiters glided through the crowd carrying trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Despite the elegance surrounding her, she couldn't shake the nervousness bubbling in her stomach. What was she doing here? This wasn't her world. These weren't her people. And yet, Keanu had invited her personally, a gesture so generous it still amazed her. As she wandered further into the venue, she noticed familiar faces scattered throughout the room. Actors, musicians, philanthropists, all mingling casually, as if they were old friends. It was surreal to see celebrities up close laughing and chatting without any hint of pretense. For a moment she wondered if Keanu would even remember her. After all, he must meet hundreds of people at events like this. Would he recognize her face among the crowd? Her question was answered sooner than she expected. As she lingered near the entrance, unsure of where to go next, a calm voice broke through her thoughts. "Hi there," it said warmly. She turned around to find Keanu standing just a few feet away, dressed in a tailored suit that complemented his laid-back charm. His smile was genuine and his eyes sparkled with kindness as he extended his hand toward her. "Thank you for coming," he said simply, shaking her hand firmly. "I'm really glad you could make it." She blinked, momentarily speechless. Here was the man she had mocked and underestimated, greeting her with the same warmth and humility he had shown in the store. It was disarming, to say the least. Finally, she managed to stammer out a response. "Thank you for inviting me. I wasn't sure if I'd be welcome after what happened." Keanu chuckled softly, waving off her concern. "Don't worry about that," he said. "Everyone deserves a second chance. Besides, tonight isn't about any of that. It's about helping kids who need support. That's why we're all here." His words put her at ease, and for the first time since entering the ballroom, she began to relax. Over the next hour, Keanu introduced her to several of his friends and colleagues, each one welcoming her with open arms. They talked about the charity's mission, sharing stories of how their efforts had already made a difference in communities across the country. She listened intently, marveling at the passion and dedication these individuals brought to their work. But what struck her most was how Keanu interacted with everyone. He didn't act like a celebrity or someone entitled to special treatment. Instead, he moved through the room with quiet confidence, treating everyone, from wealthy donors to volunteers, with the same level of respect and care. Whether he was discussing fundraising goals with a board member or posing for photos with fans, his demeanor never changed. He was authentic, approachable, and deeply committed to the cause. At one point during the evening, Keanu took the stage to give a short speech. The room fell silent as he stepped up to the microphone, his presence commanding attention without being overbearing. "Thank you all for being here tonight," he began, his voice steady and sincere. "This event is about more than raising money. It's about giving hope to children who deserve every opportunity to succeed. Many of them face challenges most of us can't imagine, but with your help, we can provide resources and support to change their lives." He paused, scanning the crowd with a thoughtful expression. "I've been lucky enough to have people believe in me when I needed it most. Tonight I ask you to do the same for others, Together, we can create a brighter future, not just for these kids, but for our entire community. The audience erupted into applause, many rising to their feet to show their appreciation. Watching him speak, the saleswoman felt a lump form in her throat. There was something profoundly inspiring about the way Keanu used his platform, not for fame or recognition, but to uplift those in need. It was clear that his commitment to helping others came from a place of genuine empathy, shaped by his own experiences and struggles. After the speech, Keanu rejoined her near the back of the room. "So what do you think?" he asked, gesturing to the lively atmosphere around them. People were dancing, chatting, and bidding on auction items, all while contributing to the charity's mission. "It's incredible," she admitted, her voice filled with admiration. "I've never seen anything like this before. Everyone seems so united, like they truly care about making a difference." Keanu nodded, a small smile playing on his lips. That's what happens when people come together for something bigger than themselves. It's amazing what we can accomplish when we focus on helping others instead of competing or judging. His comment hit home, reminding her of her own journey over the past few weeks. Since the incident at the store, she had worked hard to change the way she interacted with customers, striving to treat everyone with the same kindness and respect she now saw modeled by Keanu. It wasn't always easy. Old habits died hard, but she was determined to keep improving. "I've thought a lot about what you said in your email," she confessed, her tone hesitant but honest, "about learning from mistakes and moving forward. I want you to know how much I appreciate your forgiveness. Not many people would have handled things the way you did." Keanu tilted his head slightly, studying her with an expression of quiet understanding. "We're all human," he replied. "We make mistakes, we grow, and hopefully we become better versions of ourselves. You've already taken the first step by acknowledging what happened and wanting to change. That takes courage." His words resonated deeply, filling her with a renewed sense of purpose. For so long she had let assumptions and biases dictate her behavior, closing herself off to the possibility of seeing people for who they truly were. But now, thanks to Keanu's example, she realized that everyone deserved a fair chance, and that included herself. As the night wore on, she found herself enjoying the event more than she ever imagined. She laughed with strangers who quickly became friends, learned about the charity's initiatives, and even participated in a raffle to win a signed movie poster. By the time the evening drew to a close, she felt a profound sense of gratitude, not just for the opportunity to attend, but for the lessons she had gained along the way. When it was time to leave, Keanu walked her to the door, thanking her once again for coming. "Take care of yourself," he said with a warm smile, "and remember, kindness matters always." She nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "Thank you, Keanu, for everything." As she stepped outside into the cool night air, she knew one thing for certain: her life had changed forever. The man who had once been a stranger in her store had become a guiding light, teaching her the value of humility, compassion, and second chances. And though their paths might not cross again, she vowed to carry his message with her, to treat every person she met with the dignity and respect they deserved. The following Monday, the saleswoman returned to work with a renewed sense of purpose. Stepping into the boutique felt different this time, not because the store had changed, but because she had. Her mind was filled with memories of the charity event and the lessons she'd learned from Keanu Reeves. She couldn't stop thinking about his words. Kindness matters. Always. Those 4 simple words echoed in her head like a mantra, guiding her actions as she prepared for another day. On the job, her co-workers noticed the shift in her demeanor immediately. Gone was the sharp-tongued, judgmental woman who often rolled her eyes at customers or made snide remarks under her breath. In her place stood someone calmer, more patient, and genuinely interested in helping others. When a customer walked in, wearing sneakers and a hoodie instead of exchanging smirks with her colleagues, she greeted them warmly and asked how she could assist. If someone hesitated over an expensive item, she didn't assume they were out of their depth. Instead, she offered thoughtful advice and encouragement. At first, her coworkers were skeptical. "What happened to you?" one of them joked during a slow afternoon. "Did you drink some kind of nice juice over the weekend?" She laughed, softly, brushing off the comment. "Let's just say I had a wake-up call," she replied, not elaborating further. She wasn't ready to share the full story yet. It felt too personal, too raw, but she hoped her actions would speak louder than any explanation. Over the next few weeks, the changes in her behavior began to ripple through the store. Customers responded positively to her newfound warmth and attentiveness, leaving satisfied and even recommending the boutique to friends. Sales numbers improved, and the overall atmosphere became friendlier and more welcoming. Even her coworkers, initially dismissive of her transformation, started to follow her lead. They realized that treating people with respect didn't just make them feel good. It also benefited the business. Still, there were moments when old habits threatened to creep back in. One particularly busy Saturday, a man entered the store, wearing paint-splattered overalls and boots caked with dirt. He looked like he'd come straight from a construction site, and several employees exchanged wary glances. The saleswoman felt a flicker of doubt herself. This was exactly the type of person she might have dismissed in the past. But then she remembered Keanu's calm smile and the way he had handled her mockery with grace. Taking a deep breath, she approached the man with a friendly greeting. "Hi there. How can I help you today?" she asked, her tone warm and inviting. The man looked slightly surprised by her politeness but quickly smiled back. "I'm looking for a gift for my wife," he explained. "Something special, maybe a watch?" Without hesitation, she led him to one of the display cases and began showing him options, explaining the features and craftsmanship of each piece. To her surprise, he seemed knowledgeable about watches and clearly cared about finding the perfect gift. After some discussion, he settled on a mid-range model and purchased it without hesitation. As he left the store, he thanked her sincerely, adding, "You've been so helpful. My wife is going to love this." That interaction reinforced everything she had learned. Appearances truly didn't matter. Every person who walked through the door deserved to be treated with dignity and kindness, regardless of what they wore or how much money they appeared to have. It was a lesson she vowed never to forget. Meanwhile, word of her encounter with Keanu slowly spread among her coworkers. One evening, after closing up the store, she finally decided to share the full story. Sitting down with her team in the break room, she recounted the events of that fateful day, the mocking laughter, the rude comments, the shock of realizing who Keanu really was, and the guilt that followed. She described the apology letter she wrote, the invitation to the charity event, and the profound impact meeting him had on her life. Her coworkers listened intently, their expressions shifting from disbelief to admiration. "Wow," one of them said when she finished. "That must have been humbling." "It was," she admitted, nodding. "But it was also one of the best things that ever happened to me. Keanu didn't have to forgive me or invite me to that event. He could have walked away and never looked back. But he chose kindness instead. And that's something I'll carry with me forever." Her honesty resonated deeply with her colleagues. Over the next few days, they found themselves reflecting on their own behavior and biases. Some confessed to making similar mistakes in the past, while others pledged to approach their jobs with more empathy and professionalism. Together, they committed to creating a culture of kindness within the store, a promise that extended beyond their interactions with customers to include each other as well. As weeks turned into months, the boutique thrived. Customers raved about the exceptional service, and employee morale reached an all-time high. The saleswoman became known as a role model, not just for her impressive sales record, but for her unwavering dedication to treating everyone with respect. She even started mentoring new hires, sharing the lessons she had learned and encouraging them to embrace the same values. One day, while sorting through mail at the front desk, she received an unexpected package. It was small and unassuming, wrapped in plain brown paper with no return address. Curious, she opened it to find a framed photo of Keanu standing beside her at the charity event. In the picture, both of them were smiling, their body language relaxed and genuine. On the bottom, corner, Keanu had written a short message. "Thank you for reminding me why kindness matters. Keep shining your light." Tears welled up in her eyes as she read the inscription. She hadn't expected any acknowledgement from him after the event, let alone such a heartfelt gesture. It was as if he understood the magnitude of the change he had inspired in her, and perhaps in countless others whose lives he touched. She placed the photo on her desk, where it served as a constant reminder of the journey she had embarked upon. From the moment she met Keanu in the store to the night of the charity event and every day since, she had grown in ways she never imagined possible. She wasn't the same person anymore, and she was proud of that. Looking around the bustling boutique, she realized that her transformation wasn't just personal, it was collective. The entire team had embraced the spirit of kindness and inclusivity, creating an environment where everyone felt valued and respected. And while challenges undoubtedly lay ahead, she knew they were equipped to face them together, with compassion, humility, and grace. For the first time in years, she felt truly fulfilled, not because of the watches she sold or the commissions she earned, but because of the impact she was making on the world around her. Months passed, and the boutique where the saleswoman worked became known not just for its luxury watches but also for the warmth and kindness of its staff. Customers often commented on how welcoming the store felt, and many returned again and again, not just to buy something but because they enjoyed the experience of being treated with genuine care. The saleswoman's transformation had sparked a ripple effect that touched everyone around her, from her co-workers to the clientele. One crisp autumn morning, as she prepared the store for opening, she noticed an envelope tucked under the door. It was addressed to her in neat handwriting with no return address. Intrigued, she picked it up and opened it carefully. Inside was a handwritten letter, accompanied by 2 tickets to a charity gala happening later that month. Her heart skipped a beat when she recognized the signature at the bottom, Keanu Reeves. The letter read, "Dear Saleswoman, I hope this note finds her well. I wanted to personally thank you once again for your courage and growth over these past months. Word has reached me about the positive changes you've inspired in your workplace, and I couldn't be prouder. Your commitment to kindness is making a real difference, not just for your customers but for your team and community as well. Enclosed are tickets to an upcoming event supporting mental health initiatives for young people. It would mean a lot to me if you could attend. Bring someone who inspires you or has been part of your journey. Together we can continue spreading compassion wherever we go. With gratitude, Keanu." She stared at the letter, her hands trembling slightly. She couldn't believe he had taken the time to write to her again, and to invite her to another meaningful event. This wasn't just about forgiveness anymore. It was about partnership. Keanu saw potential in her, and he believed in the power of her actions to inspire others. The thought filled her with a sense of purpose she hadn't felt before. Determined to honor his gesture, she decided to bring her manager to the gala. Over the months, her manager had supported her efforts to transform the store's culture, encouraging her every step of the way. Plus, she knew her manager would appreciate seeing firsthand the kind of impact empathy and professionalism could have outside the retail world. On the night of the gala, the 2 women arrived at a stunning venue decorated with twinkling fairy lights and elegant floral arrangements. Guests mingled beneath crystal chandeliers, sipping champagne and discussing the evening's mission, raising awareness and funds for mental health resources for children and teenagers. As they stepped inside, the saleswoman scanned the crowd, half expecting to see Keanu nearby. Sure enough, he spotted her almost immediately and made his way over, his familiar smile lighting up his face. "You came," he said warmly, embracing her briefly before turning to greet her manager. "Thank you both for being here. This cause is close to my heart, and I'm glad to share it with people who understand its importance." Throughout the evening, she found herself reflecting on how far she'd come since that fateful day in the boutique. Here she was, standing among philanthropists, activists, and celebrities, all united by a desire to make the world a better place. And while she still didn't consider herself part of their world, she realized that she didn't need to. "What am I mattered was the shared belief in kindness, compassion, and second chances, values that transcended wealth, status, or fame. During dinner, several speakers took the stage to share stories of resilience and hope. One young woman, barely in her 20s, spoke about overcoming anxiety and depression with the help of counseling services funded by events like this one. Her voice wavered with emotion as she described how those resources had saved her life, allowing her to pursue her dreams and build a brighter future. By the end of her speech, there wasn't a dry eye in the room, including the saleswoman's. As the program concluded, Keanu approached her once more. "What did you think?" he asked softly, his expression thoughtful. "It was beautiful," she replied, wiping away tears. "Hearing those stories, it reminds me why what we do matters. Every act of kindness, no matter how small, can change someone's life." He nodded, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Exactly. That's why I believe in you. You've already started something incredible. Keep going." His words stayed with her long after the gala ended. In the weeks and months that followed, she continued to embody the lessons she had learned, not just in her work but in every aspect of her life. She volunteered at local shelters, organized fundraisers for causes she cared about, and encouraged friends and family to practice kindness. In their daily interactions, slowly but surely, she became a beacon of positivity in her community, inspiring others to follow suit. Her story eventually spread beyond the boutique. A journalist writing a piece about acts of kindness in unexpected places heard about her journey and reached out for an interview. At first she hesitated, unsure if she wanted to relive the embarrassing details of her encounter with Keanu. But then she remembered his message: focus on moving forward. With that in mind, she agreed to share her experience, not to dwell on her mistakes but to highlight the transformative power of forgiveness and self-improvement. The article was published in a popular magazine, capturing the attention of readers across the country. Many were moved by her honesty and determination, flooding social media with messages of support and admiration. Some even shared their own stories of personal growth, crediting her example as inspiration to reflect on their biases and strive for kindness. As the years went by, the saleswoman continued to grow, both personally and professionally. She rose through the ranks at the boutique, eventually becoming the manager herself. Under her leadership, the store became synonymous with exceptional service and inclusivity, earning awards and recognition within the industry. More importantly, it served as a safe space where customers felt valued and respected, regardless of their background or appearance. Looking back on her journey, she often thought about Keanu and the pivotal role he had played in shaping her life. Though they remained in touch sporadically, exchanging emails or meeting at events from time to time, she never forgot the profound impact of his kindness. He had taught her that true greatness lies not in wealth or fame, but in the ability to uplift others and create positive change. And so, whenever she faced challenges or doubted her path, she reminded herself of the lessons he had imparted. We're all human. We make mistakes, we grow, and hopefully we become better versions of ourselves. Armed with those words, she carried on, spreading light and love wherever she went. In the end, her story wasn't just about redemption or second chances. It was about the enduring power of kindness. Because sometimes, all it takes is one person, choosing compassion over judgment to set off a chain reaction that transforms lives. And for the saleswoman, that single act of grace, from a humble Hollywood star, had changed everything.